So lately, I've been looking at some entry-level budget PC cases to build with, and one of my favorite companies had released one of the best options available on the market earlier this year, the XT Pro by Phanteks. Now, there are two variants with tempered glass, the XT Pro, which comes in at 60 US dollars, and the XT Pro Ultra, which comes in at 80 US dollars. The difference is that for $20 more, you get pre-installed RGB fans versus one non-RGB fan on the rear panel of the base model. Another note is that the base model XT Pro only comes in black, while the Ultra gives you black and white options. Then, I found out that there is also an XT Pro Silent, which comes in black. No glass panel, but rather solid panels all around that also has sound dampening foam on the inside. And the XT Pro Silent comes in at the same price as the Ultra, which is $80, with three non-RGB fans pre-installed on the midplate. Another noticeable difference is that the Silent has a solid front panel and a ventilated back panel on the bottom portion. You can see why they had the pre-installed fans on the midplate instead of the front. I haven't tested the noise for this case yet, but I would assume that they did this because the midplate fans would run quieter than having fans breathe through the front ventilated panel. For what they come with, these are absolutely banger value cases. Diving into the review, we'll take a look at the quality and features and some thermals I did to check out certain configurations. Real quick, I have to mention that packaging is actually designed quite well too. In fact, I did not expect this for just a $60 or $80 budget case. Most of the time, I see companies use really cheap styrofoam that can break off and crumble into little pieces, but this is much better. Now, Phanteks did send me all three of the XT Pros to review in this video, but also some time-lapse builds that I'll be working on and upload in the upcoming weeks. So they also have a detailed spec sheet on their website that you can reference and plan your own build, but also still go over some of it here in my video. The XT Pro does have a very basic and simple look on the exterior. Very clean, straight lines, and pretty much monotone with no accents. Nothing too aggressive looking, which is pretty much the name of the game nowadays if you're going for some clean aesthetics. Here's a quick visual size comparison of the XT Pro Ultra next to the Phanteks NV5 just for reference. The back cover panel and tempered glass are secured via thumb screws on the rear with an easy tug to slide off. Now, this is something I find very clever, which is the front-facing side of the PSU shroud being cut open for easy access to your cables. But at the same time, the tempered glass itself has a solid film on the bottom portion to cover it all when fully built. So not only do you get a nice clean looking case when done, but the experience during the build is also efficient. The panels all fit perfectly, and the paint job is pretty smooth all around. There's like nothing about this case that feels cheap or flimsy at all. Like for $60 to $80, I think it's done pretty well. Top panel is where you'll get your power and reset buttons along with USB-C and A, an audio jack, as well as a magnetic dust filter. A side note, the USB-C on the XT Pro is 3.0, while the XT Pro Ultra and Silent models will be 3.2 Gen 2, which does provide a higher speed and power delivery. The bottom side will have a small removable dust filter for the PSU, and the case feet will be adhesive foam, not rubber or silicone. The difference with foam is that it will glide better on surfaces when you want to move it around, but rubber feet will tend to stick to the surface and you may have to pick the whole case up, and you can't just simply push it to adjust your placement on the desk. Going into the main chamber, the XT Pro Ultra does come with four pre-installed 140mm M25 DRGB fans, three on the front and one on the rear, which are already daisy-chained out of the box. The midplate also has mounting options for up to three 120mm fans along with cutouts to route those fan cables out the back. Additionally, the midplate also has a cutout for your GPU PCIe power cable to run through if you choose not to mount fans here. The ventilated front panel is also secured via retention clips along the edges, which you can easily remove by tugging on the bottom and pulling out. When removing the back panel, you get access to all the cable management, and as you can see from the motherboard tray cutouts, it is compatible with back-connect motherboards like MSI's Project Zero and Asus BTF. You also have a removable tray that can mount up to three 2.5-inch SSD drives. Down at the bottom, you do have plenty of room for an ATX power supply with up to 270mm of clearance, and that's with the removable hard drive cage installed at the front. Now, the hard drive cage itself can support one 3.5-inch hard drive on the top or bottom, or it can mount up to two 2.5-inch SSD drives in a couple of different orientations. GPU clearance is going to be 415 millimeters in length and 184 millimeters wide. Basically, the measurement from the motherboard up to the glass panel, which is plenty of space to fit even the largest cards on the market, such as the Asus ROG Strix 4080 and 4090. CPU clearance is going to have a height of 184 millimeters, which is also more than enough to fit even the largest and bulkiest air coolers. As for fans and radiator support, the rear can hold a single 120 or 140 millimeter fan or radiator. The top panel can hold up to three 120 millimeter fans or two 140 millimeter fans and up to a 360 millimeter radiator. The front panel can hold up to three 120 or 140 fans or a single 240 millimeter radiator. On the backside, you also get 7 PCIe removable and reusable PCIe slot covers. Now, I did want to say reusable PCIe slot covers because when I recently reviewed the higher priced Cooler Master MasterBox 600, I had shown that they were using the push-out non-reusable PCIe slot covers. And in that review, I had compared the MasterBox 600 to this XT Pro Ultra as the direct competitor. And I will say that now I have finally got my hands on an XT Pro to review. It pretty much confirms and validates my feedback on these two cases head to head. The system I put together revolves around a 13900K and a 4080 Strix card. Both are very high-end components on the Z790 formula from Asus. I also have a custom fan curve set where the fans run at 20% around idle and low loads and max at 80%. And the reason being is because I personally never like running any fans at 100% for both the lifespan of the fans and the noise level. Now, there was a particular thermal test I wanted to check out, and it was to see how the temperature changes with and without the top panel dust filter. Now, obviously, everyone's build will be different, so I can only account for my configuration here, and what I found is that without the dust filter, both my CPU and GPU were about 2 to 2.5 degrees cooler during a 30-minute Cinebench stability test. Also, I do have the most up-to-date BIOS to ensure that the Intel chip is kept in check, especially with all of the reports going on with degradation. Now, I also chose to keep the settings on stock instead of locking down the cores and voltages because I believe that it is going to be the most applicable and relatable to the general audience, as I think most people are just going to plug and play instead of messing around in the BIOS and locking things down and overclocking. The other test I wanted to show is how effective is placing the fans on the midplate to assist in further decreasing the GPU temperature. And I will say that in my test with the 4080 Strix as well as the 4080 Super FE during TimeSpy Extreme, the midplate fans virtually had no impact with the delta only dropping a fraction of a degree. Now keep in mind I only have these two GPUs to test in this video and I can't really account for all of the other GPU models on the market, but more specifically, it's these two body styles on graphics cards that I wanted to run because I want to see if the two different styles of shrouds would actually make a difference. But honestly, you don't really need the fans in the midplate. In fact, I think that the midplate could be more useful for working with something like custom water cooling hardware, like if you wanted to lay a flat distro plate down in the midplate right there. Now I know this is geared towards entry-level builds, basically not so much for custom water cooling, but the only thing that I would have liked to see is if Phanteks had made a larger cutout on the front of the midplate and accommodate thicker hardware placement. For example, like a full 360mm radiator on the front panel. This is the one point that I felt the MasterBox 600 has over the XT Pro. Even though these cases are not geared towards builds that would need a front-mounted radiator, since entry builds are either going to go with air cooling or AIO mounted to the top panel. I would like to have the option, especially as a custom water cooling enthusiast, but also as seen in my thermal tests, the mid-plate fans just didn't really do much. All right, the Phanteks XT Pro and all of its variants. It is, in my opinion, the best entry-level mid-tower size ATX case in 2024. Best value, seriously, because in fact, I would even say that Phanteks sort of over-delivered on this case. Because for $60 to $80, this is insane value for what you get. Okay, so that's all I have about the review here, and now I have to get started on the custom water cooling loop for this case. So if you're interested in doing that or seeing that, then keep an eye out for it.